Danger zone. It wasn't initially intended to be a party, but they ended up throwing a party. The first round quickly became a second, which then led into a third. By that point, Hugh had climbed up onto the counter and was fiddling with the shield ring to try and make a platform he could stand on. Current results was one reinforced mug chipped, a fair amount of spilled drink, and a lot of laughter. The little reminder that while pound per pound Hugh can drink as well as just about any of them, he doesn't have a lot of pounds to go around. Thankfully, before too much can happen, he gets control of himself and takes advantage of his small size to just chill on a chair that's normally barely big enough for most of the guys, but works as a big surface Hugh can stretch out and relax on. "So how long you guys thinks till we knows what's going on?" Hugh asks, and there's some thought. "Probably a few hours. You'll have to stay on it to figure things out. Our part's done. I'll talk to my brother-in-law. Big guy makes a point of understanding these things," Hugh mutters. "Baron Smith? Yeah. Makes sense. Never thought I'd be cheering for self-styled nobility, but damn if they don't do things old school." Manic notes. Outside of his fighter, the man was almost reasonable. Hell, the man had made his living lounge singing and staying 2 steps ahead of slavers, pimps, and just barely out of reach of grabby hands to keep women reaching in vain. Old school? What old school are we talking here? There are a lot of old schools, Hugh asks, and Manic snorts. First citizen style. One of the oldest of the old school. They've got royal titles not because they inherited them, but because they control and protect an area. Their territory covers all of Vuxa 5, and so, the moment things go wrong, 10 super soldiers and every woman that digs that comes running weapons blazing, Hugh says with an amused snort. Which means most of the planet, Manic remarks. Yeah, that. Think enough time has passed? Hugh asks. We've only been in here an hour. What are you waiting for? Triple D asks from nearby after he shifts the stools back after the little cleaning drone was done with the floor. You know, the things. The whole thing's going on with the ships and the lasers and the T-group jerks. I got my sister's husband on the contacts, you know. I can call him now. Hugh says, pulling out his communicator only for Triple D to take it from him. How about you sober up first? An hour isn't very long to deal with 3 capital ships, no matter how fast you are, and drunk dialing your Axiom-adept brother-in-law sounds like a good way to get pranked badly. Triple D admonishes him, and Hugh snorts as he makes a half-hearted attempt to get the device back. It fails. "Aw, he ain't like that. He's the calm type," Hugh protests. "Sober up first," Triple D says, and Hugh nods before curling up in his chair and promptly falling asleep. "Is he already asleep?" Heifer asks. "He is. How this guy can be so comfortable about dealing with the man that personally murdered the horrors of Vuxa is beyond me," Triple D says softly. "You watch those movies too?" Birdbrain asks. "Considering that my mother, father, and many of my sisters were guest stars of different episodes, I damn near popped a stiffy to hear their dying screams." Triple D explains, and there's a lot of uncomfortable looks. The tall Drin man gets a comforting hand wing on his shoulder from his squad mate. "That is immensely fucked up, but I understand. I wasn't always the youngest in my family," Birdbrain says before patting him twice and heading back to the bar to order something a little stronger than the more basic drink he'd been having. "Hey, enough with the sad stuff. Those 2 are dead, their killer is on our side, and we just downed a fucking capital-class ship. We ripped that bitch apart. Party!" Double Tap shouts, and Chonky lets out a cheer that wakes up Hugh, who joins in. It's infectious, and soon enough they're not only all partying again, but Hugh is full on spinning above them all as he holds onto the blades of a ceiling fan. Being small has its advantages in the party tricks you can do. Hugh awakes later, sore all over and in a very familiar bed with no memory of how he got there. He looks around blearily and spots his communicator, It's early evening. Well, that's his sleeping cycle fucked. There are a few messages on it, but he shoves the device into his pocket and staggers to the bathroom first. His bladder feels like it's about to burst. He ends up sitting on the kitchen table as his head spins a bit. It's not an unpleasant sensation when he's still, but movement makes it hurt. He crosses his legs under him and feels the grain of the varnished wood under his tail as he swishes it a little. Then he brings out his communicator and focuses on the messages. First one is from Franklin. "You were drunk, so I brought you home. It's usually best to have a designated driver if you're going to pound it back." Well, that answered the mystery as to how he got home at any rate. He then examines the next message. Apparently he has an email and it's from Triple D. Big Guy found out the details so far, or rather so far as of 2 hours ago. Hugh then puts the communicator to the side and decides to do something about the headache. Apparently, having some food and water could help, which is exactly what he does in digging out some off-brand rip off of Cobites. Still, the shreds of jerky that reconstitute in any liquid is a nice thing to have. He pours some broth into the brown flakes and puts it into the reheater. Some take it cold and still hard. Hugh doesn't want to bother with so much chewing and just wants the food and broth in him. He vaguely remembers Franklin laughing out loud when he saw that and proclaimed it to be Bachelor Chow. It wasn't a bad name, but it wasn't one he'd elaborated on. Hugh didn't particularly care at the moment as he prepared his little meal. Once the off-brand Cobites was done and on the table, he gathered a small platter of girt leaves to use as his silverware. It was a good balance. The leaves gave it a satisfying crunch and held the nutrients that weren't in the meat on top of the stiff little leaves, making good scoops for the meal in question. He slowly demolishes the meal and then sits back to concentrate. The Axiom pours in and he uses it to up his metabolism. The headache spikes for a moment and then fades entirely as he feels energy pour through his body. He gives himself a shake when he's done, followed by a huge yawn. "All right, I'm back in the game. What was that email about?" Hugh asks as he pulls out his communicator and then starts reading. Okay. Holy shit. I'm not sure if this is a jackpot or not, but it's a something. Apparently, the Frey was a slaver ship carrying an unmarred cargo hold full of male victims in stasis. The T-67 and T-92 were going for the 5 fingers discount in their product purchases, a common hazard in dealing with criminal organizations. If they think they can just take it and damn the consequences, they will. Apparently, the Frey's captain had some friends in the Scorchin family and were going to weigh in on favors owed. Now the cybernetic bitch was cooling her metallic head in a prison cell with a null collar on her. If she leaves the cell, the collar goes off. If the collar is fucked with, it goes off. Either way, there are few harder reset switches available in the galaxy for synthetics short of ripping out the power core and leaving them to die. So yay, they had interrupted a fight between 2 different groups of slavers and ran off laughing with the prizes. The prizes in question being a severely damaged ship, a moderately damaged ship, and 1 ship in pristine condition if you didn't mind the blood and bullet holes. A huge building effort had been green-lit to offer shelter to the 14,000 male prisoners. They ran the gamut of every species imaginable, and apparently there's a call for any donations to this end. Donations of time and money and just about everything. This wasn't a small project. There were enough men to populate an entire city. Furthermore, there's the fact that a fair proportion of them are clearly injured despite the stasis. So the awakening will happen piecemeal to avoid overloading the local hospitals and deal with this in a reasonable pace. The information ripped out of the ship explained that the Frey moved around a lot with a minimal crew and only took 1 or 2 in an area before moving on. The newest piece of product had been captured as part of a small raid 8 months ago, well before the humans emerged from cruel space. So this was going to be a hell of a culture shock for everyone. The men had called home to the Dauntless and were asking for advice. Apparently, Franklin would be keeping all squadrons posted with a send all email system. Hugh reads over the information twice just to make sure he didn't misunderstand it in the slightest. 14,000 men? 14,000? That's enough men for a fairly large city. He needs to think about this. As his mind starts veering on what-ifs based around his mother and sisters deciding to start dating, he shakes his head and refocuses. He calms down when he remembers that there's a very good chance that all 14,000 men will not want to stay, so it's temporary dealing with them. Likely the loved ones and families of these men would be willing to pay a pretty penny to have them home. Even without holding people for ransom or hostage, just sending them home will likely see an influx of gifts and goodwill to easily pay for the cost of these people landing on their laps. Then he gets an idea. It's an interesting one and he can't get it out of his head. He presses the contact link for Franklin and puts the communicator on speaker so he doesn't have to hold it up to the side of his head. Hugh? You're awake, good? How's the hangover treating you? Franklin asks after a bit. I've kicked my metabolism into high gear. It's already gone. Hugh says. Ah, good. Is this call for telling me that you're all right or some other reason? Another reason when it comes to the men being recovered from the Frey is recruiting and training them to be undaunted being considered. It is, in fact, most of us think it's a good idea. Without a doubt, most will want to just go home, but those whose homes were destroyed in the process or came out of homes they don't want to return to, well, it may feel scummy, but it will give us a fair amount of recruits. Why is it scummy? Hugh asks, and Franklin lets out a huff. Oh, never mind, just my own hang-ups. All right, if you're sure. Do you think there will be fighter pilots among them? Maybe. We'll have to see if any of them are drawn to the simulators. Although if you want to try recruiting, that would be a good use of your time. You and all of Red Squadron could make a hell of a recruitment pitch to those guys. Says the man who's famous for hunting down monsters, Hugh teases. It's a local fame. These people have never been to Vuxa before, so killing those two witches won't mean as much to them as it means to everyone else. But yes, I'm going to pitch in. Are you willing to? I think I will. Even if they don't become pilots, we'll at least give them something to think about. Good man, I'll keep you up to date on this too. All right, thanks for explaining things to me. I need to think a bit more. I'm going flying. Just make sure all that stuff has completely passed your system. It may not be alcohol, but impaired driving is never a good idea. Kills your reflexes. I'm fine, you big dork. It's just for a quick buzz to get the wind flowing over my scales. All right, have fun, little buddy, Franklin says and hangs up before anything more can be said. Always so abrupt. Hugh notes as he quickly pockets the device. He starts rooting around for his favorite jacket and 10 minutes later is in the air and rising to dance in the jet streams of the upper atmosphere.